Promises number 5. Pest control. Malachi 3:10 through 11. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. Malachi 3:10 through 11. This is a Bible memorizing project, so we will repeat our verse one more time. Malachi 3:10 through 11. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. Malachi 3:10 through 11. We had moved into a house in the country just a few months before. Then one night I heard a thump in the wall. Oh no, varmints! As time went on, the thumping, scraping, and even squeaking became regular noises in the bathroom wall. Gross! Mice and rats were not a problem, but ground squirrels had nearly taken over the whole juniper forest where we lived. Besides running up the trees, ground squirrels burrow into the ground. The next summer, I started my campaign against our little intruders, but I had a plan. Step 1, evict them. I found their entry point into the house. They had tunneled under the shallow stem wall foundation. There was a trail under the house leading to a generous-sized hole in the floorboards of the subflooring, where the water lines to the house went up through the walls. By this time, it was plain that their inside activity occurred at night, so I chose to close up their entry while they were gone during the day. Step 2. Close the door behind them and lock them out. I closed up their entryway, then put hardware cloth over the hole under the floor. Later, I learned that ground squirrels dig only a few inches deep while exploring a foundation wall, so I built up the dirt around the wall all around the house. The storage shed was next. We're going to review our steps as we go. Step 1, evict them. This time I parked a lawnmower inside the shed and started it up, then left it running. I waited outside watching the roof line. Sure enough, pretty quickly, a squirrel came out a hole under the eave, ran up the roof, then down a tree limb to the ground and scampered away. Step 2, close the door behind them and lock them out. While the squirrel was gone, I lined the whole eave area with hardware cloth. Then I emptied out the shed. I inspected the entire building, making sure there were no access points anywhere. Then I trimmed off the tree branches over the shed roof. Then there was the woodshed. While stacking wood the previous fall, I noticed a cute little mouse playing in the woodpile. Oh well, not to worry. It's not in the house. But that cutesy little mouse with big ears had grown into a huge desert rat, and it was living in the woodshed. Yuck! It was time to evict them, shut them out, and then secure the building. Step 1, evict them. Step 2, close the door behind them and lock them out. First, I emptied all the wood out of the shed. Then, I parked the car beside the shed and pumped exhaust fumes into the shed from the tailpipe. When I inspected the woodshed, I found big holes in the ground along the wall. So I installed a galvanized flashing along the base of the wall from under the siding and into the ground. Then I filled all the holes and voids on the inside of the wall, all along the floor, completely around the whole shed, with concrete mix. I finished the project by using hardware cloth around the eaves where there were holes, and also patched the doorway, so there were no gaps at the door opening. After I finished closing up their access, I refilled the woodshed with wood. Step 3. Do not destroy their natural habitat. There was one other thing I did to finish out the job of ridding my building of rodent intruders. I left the barn alone. Please indulge me as I share another story. There was a village in a primitive setting in which the village was plagued with rats. The rats lived in large rat nests that were the size of a small hut, somewhat like the way a beaver builds its beaver house, all built up with sticks and debris. One day, the men got together and set these rat nests on fire, burning them completely down. It wasn't too long after that the rats began moving into the people's huts. Let's summarize our pest control strategy. Step 1, evict them. Step 2, close the door behind them and lock them out. Step 3, do not destroy their natural habitat. Step 4, put a bodyguard around all your stuff. There is one other thing I did. I asked God to honor his promise to rebuke the devourer for my sake. I had always been faithful in tithes and offerings, so I knew I could trust him for the blessing. So one day, a few years later, as I strolled through my backyard, I realized that we had enjoyed peace from the pests ever since. And I thanked God for keeping his promise. But I wondered how long this would last. So I said, "You promised, and you have been faithful to keep your promise. Thank you." And he seemed to say to me, "What if they come back? Then what?" And I replied, "Lord, I don't care what you do. I will still be faithful to you regardless. My loyalty does not depend upon your blessings." We have moved from that country place, then moved again, and still God has rebuked the devourer for our sakes. This blessing is not in spite of carelessness, but in cooperation with vigilance. We have been faithful in tithes and offerings, and he has been faithful to his holy word. But claiming God's promises is not a good luck charm. Only he knows his plan and the best way to deal with any situation. Do we still trust in him? When we present his promises to him in prayer, it serves two purposes. One, we are inspired to comply with his conditions. Two, and we are inspired to trust his word. God does not lie. We can trust him. And let us remember, faith regardless of circumstances, faithfulness regardless of consequences. Malachi 3:10-11. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. Malachi 3:10-11. There you have it, folks.